when this
Well,
guy,
that's important to know because even on free solo, there's a lot of things. There's what you see and what happens before you see it. So like on
Yeah.
free solo, Alex Honnold still mapped his course
oh yeah,
like perfectly
and,
with a rope and everything. So he
Yeah.
used equipment before and then did it with it after, and it was still sketch as freak. Kids. Frack.
Sorry, mom.
Sorry, mom.
Yeah, I've been on that same route that he does too, and actually this one time I was on the route. I can't remember who I was on the route with, but he passed us with Tommy.
No way, you seen him?
Yeah,
You met him a couple times, right?
Yeah, well, like that was one of the times, and then I met him in the village. Like, there's like some restaurants and whatnot. He was just farting around,
Yeah.
getting pictures taken of him.
Oh, that's cool.
And he recognized my boss and stuff, and so
He's probably really famous out there, I would assume, because it's like
Yeah.
climbing capital of the world. The West
Yeah.
Coast. I mean, you're not going to find climbers out here in the East like you would in the West. Like that's where.
he'd probably get mad at me saying, but like he has a house in
know me.
Tahoe and
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, that's pretty normal. I mean, Taylor Swift has a house in Watch Point or whatever, Watch Hill, sorry, in Connecticut. So,
Yeah.
and then Lake Winnipesaukee has a ton of
Oh,
celebrities.
yeah, it's loaded.
Yeah.
Loaded.
Climbing though was one of those things for me that after having like a rough childhood or whatnot, like it was like a light for me and like an outlet.
Yeah.
This guy basically like grabbed me, and this is why I mentioned the styles of climbing, because I wasn't like a good climber, and I wasn't very strong, or I wasn't like, a lot of climbing's like super technique oriented, like in Sedona, you know what I mean? That's why I was like pointing out like, oh, like you want to roll onto your feet with your hips.
Roll on your feet. There's a ton of really cool
Yeah.
things that you just there's placement.
Yeah, totally. And then this guy first grabbed me, and like the first cliff this guy wanted to do it's called the Rostrum in Yosemite, and you rappel down. It was my first time rappelling, and you rappel down about 1,000 feet, and then which is when you're like going down the rope with devices, and then you climb back up, and the level of climbing was it was way too hard for me. So I was we call it jugging, when you're actually like guys who are climbing trees a lot of times do jug, they jug, or I don't really.
What do you do when you're jugging?
So there are these two, I call them Jumars, but they clip onto the rope, and then one's clipped to your harness, and one's clipped to your feet.
You can kind of scale the rope,
and you just climb the rope.
Oh, okay.
So I did that for like, I mean, on anything I couldn't climb with my hands and feet.
Mm-hmm. You would jug it.
I would jug it, and it was like no pressure. I mean, it was like still like scary when you're not used to it, and
that kind of height.
Wait, so you climb this? I just searched pictures of this. This stuff looks sketchy. My
yeah.
God.
Yosemite is.
You looked at the rostrum?
Yeah. Holy, forget about it. No, I'm all set with that.
Hey, send me a picture.
Yeah.
Send whatever picture you find. Send it to me in Facebook.
And that's a route I went back to 5 times in my climbing career. Yeah, like I'm not climbing like I used to, but I would say from like 19 to 24, I climbed it 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And
just practicing the route, and you always did it.
Yeah, and the goal was always to free climb it. So like, there's all the lingo in the climbing community, like.
So free climbing is when you still have a belay.
Yeah, you still clipped in and roped up, and but you're trying to like climb it with just your hands and feet.
Yeah, yeah.
And
There's no assistance. In other words, there's just a safety guard.
And if you're to like go to like back in the West Coast, and you're talking to a climber, and you're like, "Oh, I freed this route," they'd probably think you meant you climbed it without falling.
Okay.
So, like for me back then, it was always like, "Oh, I want to free this route." Like that was the goal with that route.
Mm-hmm.
And so I the last time I tried it, I never freed the whole route. Like the last pitch or last rope length up there, you had to like go out on a roof and then up on this face, and I had gotten like 3/4 of the way up, and I fell, and I kept falling, and then I get up there, and I'm like struggling, like thrutching, or like I'm
shaking a little.
Shaking. I'm all like, I can't even like think or focus anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And this chick named Hazel Finley sticks her head over the top, and she's like one of the #1 British climbers.
No kidding.
And total babe. I
Yeah.
mean, total babe.
Climbing babes. Shout out to all the
And,
climbing babes.
I mean, like one of those, like, you know, like when you first get an Instagram, you're like, okay, I gotta follow this person. That's
Yeah.
how it's, you know, for me, just like,
She had a lot to teach.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
you know, like, she peeked her head over the top, and I fell immediately. I knew,
Scared you?
Yeah, I knew who she was, and I was like, oh fuck, and I fell.
Oh, so you already had known her, and you're like, oh my God.
And then she's still looking at me, and she's kind of like chuckling, you know, like in a nice way.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, oh, you got this, you can do it. And we get to the top, and it's like a small area there, you know what I mean? And there's like camping in Yosemite. We were there for 2 weeks, and you're only allowed to stay there for a week.
Oh.
So we're like hiding and like finding campsites to like sleep at, and you sleep in your vehicle so it's less conspicuous and all that. It's just like the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And we had taken her campsite twice, and she recognized our van. So we spent like 2 hours like
Hanging out.
yeah, haggling each other
Yeah.
and just giving each other shit. And that, you know, but those are like real inspiring times, I guess. There was a lot of times like those, and scary times like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing is,
I could imagine. I mean, it's one. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably one of those experiences when you're climbing that in the moment there's all this fear, but then when you got it done, you're met immediately with fulfillment and like, wow, that was exciting. You look
Yeah.
back at it as a very exciting thing.
yeah. The way I always describe it too is there's like type 1 fun,
Yeah.
which is fun in the moment.
Oh yeah. You
And
were
then-
telling me about this in Arizona.
Yeah, like type 1, like I think type 1 fun, like fun in the moment, like last night or some shit, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
if you
just
enjoy
hanging out
doing-
with friends and
Yeah, and there's type 2 fun, which is like not necessarily fun in the moment, but you look back and you're like, that was epic.
that was awesome.
Like that was worth it. And there's type 3 fun, which is like, even when you look back, it sucked.
Is it
Type-
fun at that point?
Yeah.
Type 3
And
fun. You don't
I've-
want type 3 fun.
No.
And that's kind of the theme with climbing is I could talk about it for a while in terms of like,
I like that. Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3 fun. Type 1 fun's like instantly, that was a great time. And
It's kind of like the
yeah,
diabetes.
you don't want it to end. You
Right,
know?
right.
You're like totally like chilling and having a good time.
yeah. Type 2 fun, you probably want it to end, but then afterwards you realize that was the best time of your life.
Yeah, and that's like wall climbing,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
what I
Majestic scale.
which is what I did. I was a wall climber.
I've done top rope a few times at CRG, and I don't know how high those walls are. What do you think, 50 feet?
Yeah, it's 50, 60.
Yeah, and honestly, in the moment, it can be a little nerve-wracking when you look down. You realize, well, if I fall and this rope doesn't do what it's supposed to, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
in terrible shape.
Yeah, that's a big factor too. Is in climbing, and people who are getting into it is the trust element. You know, you're trusting gear, you're trusting your belay.
Yeah.
And I got scary stories of being dropped. Like I fell like 30 feet of getting dropped.
So I'm just thinking now, like in Massachusetts, how long is it going to be? How many more times will people need to get hurt before they make like places like CRG outlawed? In Massachusetts, that is. In the state, everything that's fun
Oh.
is sort of illegal, just
That's a
to
good
avoid
question.
hurting people.
There-
Like fireworks are illegal, and it's like the wettest place in the world. You can go to Missouri, and it's dry and hot all the fucking time, and you can get as many fireworks as your heart desires.
Yeah. Come to Nevada, man. They're
I know.
everywhere.
Yeah, I
You
know.
can't shoot them off.
But Nevada
though.
doesn't even have.
They hate fireworks, like shooting them off in Nevada, but you could buy them legally.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Oh, well, you can go to New Hampshire. That's the funny thing is like you got these two states. Like one of them's very, like Massachusetts is very conservative from like a political standpoint. Like they're very not conservative on the side, but they're just very like everything's illegal. No. You can go to New Hampshire and literally buy a gun with your license and not drive a car, or rather, and drive a car without insurance.
Whoa.
You
Yeah,
don't
there's a
even
lot of
need
states like
you
that,
don't
yeah.
even need insurance in New Hampshire. Car insurance, that is. It's like a law that you have to have it here. I don't know how it is in Nevada. It might be similar.
Yeah, it's like really bad in
lot
Nevada
of
if you
states
don't
are
have
like that.
insurance.
Yeah.
A lot of states are like that, just from liability standpoint. A lot of states just want at least for you to at least have liability insurance in case you hit somebody.
Yeah, I don't know why there's a
Yeah.
buzz on your end. Could you check? I don't know if you're like probably staticky or something. Oh yeah, it's actually your headphones. Yeah, hear that every time you touch it? Yeah, just keep it like that. Actually, I think that's good. Talk.
Hello.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
probably
to
better. That's- I
dance.
love to dance. Sorry about that, folks. A little technical difficulty. Whoa. Though,
So gyms are funny though because like I worked for Rockworks building
Yeah.
gyms and
I know you worked for Rockworks for some time too, so that's too cool how it was a passion and a mastery of your own, and then as time went on, you became somebody who ended up making these gyms.
Yeah, just for a bit, but it was cool to see because I think it's like a general consensus to indoor climbing is like its own sport.
It is. It's different. I could
Yeah,
only
it's
imagine.
completely different because I didn't. A lot of people nowadays start by indoor climbing and then
Mhm.
take what they've learned
Outdoor.
outdoor. And I'm not dissing on gyms. It's actually a great place to learn the safety
No, it's
protocols.
It's
A very controlled environment
yeah,
and
and to know the contrast between the two because like. I'm sure there's people listening to this who might not have known the difference, or rather, that there is a difference between indoor
yeah,
and
because
outdoor.
the way if it weren't for that my boss taking me up those cliffs, I would have learned a lot of things, but I didn't learn everything from him. A lot of stuff I learned was like school of hard knocks. Like we had some really like
It's
me and
trial and error.
oh man, me and my
The
brother had
best kind of
some
learning.
Yeah.
had
it
some
is.
really close calls. Like I mean, I got dropped like 30 feet, you know, and like I was like 19 and shit, and um knocking rocks loose and
I
like
felt like 10 feet on top of my boss with a ladder once. That's the best I got. He
Yeah.
caught me with his freaking.
oh man.
shout out again to John Fennell if he's listening.
In a way, it was like, I mean, I look back and like, oh man, that really built up my mental resilience to fear.
What happened? So you fell? Was it just a free drop, or what did you fall on, or did you have some
Um,
resistance on the way down?
So the route we were doing, the route itself was like 160 feet long.
Mhm.
So which is like for top roping, that's like a really long route. That's like that's kind of like a two-pitch route, you know, and like you go up and you build an anchor and you hang on the anchor, then you climb up again, and we call that multi-pitch climbing, which is wall climbing. But we're like, oh, we're just doing one. We'll tie two ropes together, do it in one, and we were just kind of young and reckless and having a good time. And I climbed it. I climbed the route, and I'm coming back down, and my buddy forgot to tie the ropes together. So like you need two belayers and all this, and we had all that, but he forgot to tie the ropes together, and the rope went through his belay device. And so I start falling. You know, at that point, there's nothing holding the other
Yeah.
end of the rope,
Ooh.
and I ended up catching the rope in my hand as it was flying past me. So
you
I got
just
I got really lucky. But I mean, like,
Yeah, 30 feet.
It-
What is the saying? Like 10 feet's enough. 10, 12 feet is enough to kill somebody from a free drop,
yeah,
Probably.
I've heard.
Enough to scare the shit out of me, I tell you what.
yeah, it was crazy. I never hit the ground, but shit like that, or like we used to buy like used climbing gear.
Oh god, that sounds awful. That sounds no
We're just
bueno.
some like
Oh,
we're just
no.
some broke idiots who are like, oh, we
Yeah.
got to get climbing gear so we can go do all this
I
shit.
mean, that sounds like something I would do, honestly. Because I'm like, well, how
Oh man, we got so much shit for it too.
how many
I'm
variables is there with
sorry.
like a rope? I mean, what I
Yeah.
guess there's the belay, the what is that thing? Well, it's just a knot, really.
Well, I feel like most ropes, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just assume most ropes probably have like a life expectancy and like
Yeah,
miles you can put on them.
Definitely, and
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
it's you don't see it a lot anymore. But it's how I'm not like trying to sound like cocky or nothing, but a lot of people are like this still. Like if you look up videos of like pro climbers or not even pro climbers, but people are like actively pushing their limits climbing.
Yeah.
More outside than inside. You don't, but people are we call it whipping when you fall. You know, you're trying to move and you're trying to move and you keep falling and keep falling. And I mean, I've fallen like on the rope. I've fallen like 40 feet a couple occasions.
So
Like,
when you
trying
say
to do 'em-
falling, was it just like, or were you like
Yeah.
skirting down the wall type?
Well, it did, like I kind of knew. I learned from experience because I had like falls. Actually, that time I got dropped. The next, or I think it was the day before. Yeah, it was the day before. I was on this route, and I had already done it, and I was just really overconfident, and I was kind of showing off, and I get up there, and I'm not putting a lot of gear in.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up falling like 40 feet.
Wow.
So like,
How did you manage to catch that fall?
Well, like your belayer catches you.
Oh, gotcha.
So like what happens when you're lead climbing? You're going up. So like in a gym, it's the bolts that you clip.
Yeah.
So outdoors sometimes it's bolts, sometimes it's tride gear, which is like the cams you put into cracks, and they expand when you pull on them. So you have to get used to them, and that's what they're kind of scary to get used to. Or there's like nuts that you wedge in between like wedges in the rock.
Yeah.
That's called traditional climbing.
That'd be something really wild to trust.
Yeah,
those
it
bolts.
is, and that's like what Yosemite climbing is.
How good is the attachment in a rock?
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. I mean, I know a NASA engineer developed cams.